Many men wish death upon
I just heard that you black people that was stolen from Africa to America, that you don't know who you are.
Deuteronomy chapter 28.
But you are the children of Yahweh.
Because we are the real Jews. We're the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. It is
The children of Israel.
Cry no more, don't look to the sky no more. Have mercy on me, have mercy on my soul. Don't let my heart turn cold.
أنا برسم بورتريه كبير وفي يعني عناصر فوق رسالة تضامن أو كرسالة تضامن للشعب الأمريكي ولقضية العنصرية. يعني فكرة أرسم البورتريه لحاله حسيتها ضعيفة، فهان فوق في مش كاملة هي. حتكون بالنهاية إيد بشرة طبيعية، بشرة البيضاء أو البرونزية مع إيد من بشرة السوداء كتضامن إنه إحنا كلنا إنسان يعني.
Lemba are fascinatingly unique because we could trace them directly to the oldest Jewish exile community in the world from Yemen. And the Yemenite Jewish community, when they came back to Israel, they had customs that were preserved for 2,000 years uninterrupted. Even some of their pronunciation of Hebrew letters were unique as far as how the Ashkenazim and Sephardim pronounced their letters, but no one challenged them saying it's unauthentic. It was as authentic it can get.
Verses 36 and 64, they're like twins. And it says, the Lord will drive you, his chosen people, and the king you set over you to a nation unknown to you or your ancestors. And there in this nation you will worship other gods, gods of wood and gods of stone. Verse 64, then the Lord will scatter you among the nations, from one end of the earth to the other. And there you will worship other gods, gods of wood and gods of stone.
And I'm telling you, you have to come back to your homeland, here to Zion, to Jerusalem, because us the Gentiles, we do need you.
هذا الجدار هذا عليه جداريات كثيرة بتمثل العنصرية.
Because 98% of everybody out there believes that their roots starts in Africa. So they call themselves Black African Americans. And really what they should be talking themselves is they are what? The Hebrews and the Jews of the original temple of the city of David.
And not to mention, obviously, we speak about the genetic Kohen phenomenon amongst the Lemba people, that a large percentage of them have a genetic marker to be from the Kohanim, from the priests of Israel.
So I start with Jeremiah chapter 16:19, where it says, Lord, my strength and my fortress, my refuge in this time of distress for me. Gentiles like myself will come from all over the earth, and they will say to you, my forefathers have taught me nothing but lies, and in these lies were worthless gods and worthless idols that will do me no good in this time of distress.
You're the foremost. You're one of the leading scholars on the Lost Tribes.
Yeah, let's get a little context.
Yeah.
12 tribes of Israel. Mm-hmm. There was a unified kingdom. Then there became a civil war, basically. The northern kingdom was 10 tribes, and the southern kingdom was Judea, 2 tribes. The Assyrian army came. They exiled the northern 10 tribes towards the far east, and many of them ran into the north, and some hit the sea on ships. And the Judeans stayed in the first temple period still of King Solomon in Judea for another period of time afterwards, just by themselves. But at the end times, there's something called the unification between Judah and Israel. Because the real elephant in the room is, if you go to the government of Israel's website on their view on the lost tribes of Israel and who's from the house of Israel around the world, you'll notice one of the most common names in that report is the Igbo tribe, the Igbo tribe. But what is mind-boggling to me, which I can't imagine why this is not in the news and not spoken about, is that like a large chunk, more than a fourth of the transatlantic slave trade came specifically from this one tribe. So how are we not starting to connect dots and being like, wait a minute, so the tribe in Africa that the government of Israel is fascinated with and enamored by is now the blood of those people flowing through the African-American community here, which makes sense to me why they're all being like, we have an Israelite affinity, where we're identifying, this is us, we are this. And so I'm like, so yeah, if the DNA of the blood of these people are in them, they have a valid claim to feel and say that.
The Igbo people of Nigeria and the Rhode Island Jewish community connected, and they sent a couple of tribal elders here, and then we went to the Igbo land in Nigeria, me and my friend Shai Afsai, who led the trip, and my wife Naomi. It was a great time of they're doing a Jewish thing there in Nigeria, and so that's real, that's legit.
Verse 68 says, "And the Lord shall bring thee," our black brothers and sisters, the true Hebrews of the Bible, "into Egypt again." See, it's all beginning to make sense. Via ship, the Atlantic slave trade.
What will happen in the future times when this great awakening happens? When this great awakening happens? Great awakening.
Woe to Ariel, the city where David dwelt. Add ye year to year, let them kill sacrifices. Yet I will distress Ariel, and there shall be heaviness and sorrow. And it shall be unto me as Ariel. And I will camp against thee round about, and will lay siege against thee with a mount, and I will raise forts against thee. And thou shalt be brought down, and shalt speak out of the ground. And thy speech shall be low out of the dust, and thy voice shall be as of one that hath a familiar spirit out of the ground, and thy speech shall whisper out of the dust. Moreover, the multitude of thy strangers shall be like small dust, and the multitude of the terrible ones shall be as chaff that passeth away. Yea, it shall be at an instant, suddenly. Thou shalt be visited of Yahweh Shabbaoth with thunder, and with earthquake, and great noise, with storm and tempest, and the flame of devouring fire. And the multitude of all the nations that fight against Ariel, even all that fight against her and her munition, and that distress her, shall be as a dream of a night vision.
The singularity of existence is angry with our ancestors and is vowing in this moment, in what we're reading, to destroy us by causing other nations, other kingdoms, many of them, to all target us.
It shall even be as when an hungry man dreameth, and behold, he eateth, but he awaketh, and his soul is empty. Or as when a thirsty man dreameth, and behold, he drinketh, but he awaketh, and behold, he is faint, and his soul hath appetite. So shall the multitude of all the nations be that fight against Mount Zion. Stay yourselves and wonder, cry ye out, and cry, they are drunken, but not with wine. They stagger, but not with strong drink. For Yahweh hath poured out upon you the spirit of deep sleep, and hath closed your eyes. The prophets and your rulers, the seers hath he covered.
She, the same one who first gave breath, the sacred wind, to inhabit man so that man could live. Here we see that what she's doing is she is actually causing our ancestors to appear drunken with a certain form of ignorance. And the way she's doing it is by breathing upon them. Ruach Tardema. Ruach Tardema is the wind of deep sleep. The wind of deep sleep.
And the vision of all is become unto you as the words of a book that is sealed, which men deliver to one that is learned, saying, Read this, I pray thee. And he saith, I cannot, for it is sealed. And the book is delivered to him that is not learned, saying, Read this, I pray thee. And he saith, I am not learned. Wherefore Adonai said, For as much as this people draw near me with their mouth, and with their lips do honor me, but have removed their heart far from me, and their fear toward me is taught by the precept of men, therefore, behold, I will proceed to do a marvelous work among this people, even a marvelous work and a wonder. For the wisdom of their wise men shall perish, and the understanding of their prudent men shall be hid.
Our seers, our stargazers, our prophets all went away because of the wind of deep sleep. Gradually, our populace lost people who could interpret signs. So we haven't been able to interpret signs since then. Even the shaman became little more than a common priest since then. Just as ineffectual as the pastors and priests of today.
So you wonder why you're hated. Because it's what's in your blood.
Ever since then, we've been unable to understand our own scriptures.
Woe unto them that seek deep to hide their counsel from Yahweh, and their works are in the dark, and they say, Who seeth us, and who knoweth us? Surely your turning of things upside down shall be esteemed as the potter's clay. For shall the works say of him that made it, He made me not? Or shall the thing framed say of him that framed it, He had no understanding? Is it not yet a very little while, and Lebanon shall be turned into a fruitful field, and the fruitful field shall be esteemed as a forest? And in that day shall the deaf hear the words of the book, and the eyes of the blind shall see out of obscurity and out of darkness.
So now the elements, Elohim, are being prophesied to take the wind of deep sleep from us, so that we would essentially awaken. This is the awakening being prophesied, saying that there will be a sign that the wind of deep sleep is no longer upon us. The sign is that Lebanon, famous for its cedar trees, would just suddenly regain these cedar trees, that they would be caused to return. The language is key. It's not just that they would return, but that someone would make them return.
The return of the cedar trees has occurred over the course of the past decade. During the same decade, a rapidly growing number of Black Americans have randomly begun identifying as Israelites. Is this just a coincidence?
Remember, when you're reading Isaiah 29, this is the universe speaking, the sum of all existence. She is nature itself, both terrestrial and astronomical. When she says the phrase shall be turned, talking about Lebanon, that's all one word in the Masoretic Hebrew, washab. It's a conjugation of the verb shub, which just means to turn or to return. But here's the thing. The syntax of this sentence leans toward another common use of this term, meaning will be caused to turn back. And we get semantic confirmation of that from the very next clause, where it says, the fruitful field will be esteemed as a forest. It could have said the fruitful field would just become a forest, or she could have simply called Lebanon a forest. The phrasing of this implies that Lebanon will be caused to turn back into a field of many trees that gets treated like or viewed as a forest despite not being a natural forest. That's because the forest is a fabrication of man's hands. So what's being said here is that the day when humanity attempts to recreate the ancient cedar forests of old in Lebanon, they would only manage to recreate so much. Yet existence is saying that the day in which that happened would also be the day in which the children of Israel regain the ability to hear the words of the book and see signs. Prophets called seers were blind at first, and now they're going to see again. The elements, also collectively known as Elohim, caused the cedar trees of Lebanon to faint, it says, as a way for the land to mourn the death of the Neo-Assyrian Empire, because all peoples have a spiritual connection with certain lands. Lebanon had been ruled by both the Middle Assyrian and Neo-Assyrian empires. Behold, the Assyrian was a cedar in Lebanon, with fair branches, and with a shadowing shroud, and of an high stature, and his top was among the thick boughs. The waters made him great. The deep set him up on high, with her rivers running round about his plants, and set out her little rivers unto all the trees of the field. Therefore his height was exalted above all the trees of the field, and his boughs were multiplied, and his branches became long because of the multitude of waters when he shot forth. All the fowls of heaven made their nests in his boughs, and under his branches did all the beasts of the field bring forth their young, and under his shadow dwelt all great nations. Thus was he fair in his greatness, in the length of his branches, for his root was by great waters. The cedars in the garden of Elohim could not hide him. The fir trees were not like his boughs, and the chestnut trees were not like his branches. Nor any tree in the garden of Elohim, the forest of Elohim, was like unto him in his beauty. I have made him fair by the multitude of his branches, so that all the trees of Eden that were in the forest of Elohim envied him. Therefore thus saith Adonai Yahweh, because thou hast lifted up thyself in height, and he hath shot up his top among the thick boughs, and his heart is lifted up in his height. I have therefore delivered him into the hand of the mighty one of the heathen. He shall surely deal with him. I have driven him out for his wickedness. And strangers, that's foreigners, the terrible of the nations, have cut him off and have left him. Upon the mountains and in all the valleys his branches are fallen, and his boughs are broken by all the rivers of the land, and all the people of the earth are gone down from his shadow, and have left him. Upon his ruin shall all the fowls of the heaven remain, and all the beasts of the field shall be upon his branches, to the end that none of all the trees by the waters exalt themselves for their height, neither shoot up their top among the thick boughs, neither their trees stand up in their height, all that drink water, for they are all delivered unto death, to the nether parts of the earth, in the midst of the children of men, with them that go down to the pit. Thus saith Adonai Yahweh, in the day when he went down to the grave, I caused a mourning. I covered the deep for him, and I restrained the floods thereof, and the great waters were stayed. And I caused Lebanon to mourn for him, and all the trees of the field fainted for him. All ancient peoples have biological ties to ancestral land even after they're removed from that land, because it carries your ancestral DNA. If multiple centuries worth of your ancestors were buried in that soil without coffins, and if they all spent their lives dumping their biological waste into that same soil, the land subsumed their DNA for countless generations, so it remembers you. That goes for anybody. No matter what ethnic group birthed you, there's a land somewhere that remembers your people, whether you're on it right now or not. Those ecosystems react to the collective experience of its peoples, and likewise, those peoples experience certain things because of what happens on their ancestral lands. The Negro awakening draws empathy from Syro-Phoenician Arabs because both have ancestral ties to the same lands.
رسالتنا كانت من وسط الدمار، من وسط مبنى قصفوا الطيران، لنقول للعالم رغم الخذلان العالمي والأممي ورغم تعاميه عن الإجرام اللي عم بيصير بحقنا، إلا إنه نحن الإنسانية والمبدأ الإنساني بيفرض علينا وبيحتم علينا أن نتعاطف مع كل الشعوب المظلومة، مع كل الشعوب المضطهدة. طبعا لأن دعاة
بس يسألونا مين زرع هالغابات رح يسمعوا قصة جمعية التحريج بلبنان، قصة أهل الضياع والبلديات والتلاميذ والمتطوعين، الجيش اللبناني، الوزارات.
I'm trying to be what I'm destined to be. They ain't trying to take my life away. Many, 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 many wish death on me. I can't cry no more. Don't look to the sky no more. Have mercy on me, have mercy on my soul. Don't let my heart turn cold.
We need you to come and pray because you are our saviors. You're the one that was chosen by Yahweh.
Now to Syria, where opposition forces say they have entered Aleppo after rebels launched a surprise offensive in the government-controlled city for the first time in years. A statement by a newly formed rebel umbrella coalition says clashes with Syrian forces intensified overnight into Friday morning. The rebels and Bashar al-Assad's regime had agreed to a ceasefire mediated by Russia and Turkey in March 2020.
You actually the children of Israel, and it's time just to come back. Come for your people, come back for us.
And it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. Your old men shall dream dreams, your young men shall see visions, and also upon the servants and upon the handmaids. In those days will I pour out my spirit. My job is to prophesy against the Levant and declare the war for desolate heritages. The Great Spirit is going to avenge Wael al-Dadu by fanning the flames of war against Benjamin Netanyahu. Iran, in this attack, this begins the purge of the land. Nilotic Africa, Arab North Africa, will become confederate against them in this attack.
Evidence is mounting that Egypt is building a holding area for Palestinian refugees on its border with the Gaza Strip.
Israeli attacks are an undeniable breach of international peace. Algeria condemns in the strongest terms the recent military attacks by the Israeli occupation forces perpetrated against the Islamic Republic of Iran.
And the next phase of the purge, floods and earthquakes, unbearable heat, and volcanic eruption. Lands of the Middle East are going to devour their inhabitants very soon. Unbearable heat.
Temperatures in Tel Aviv broke an 85-year-old record for the month of April on Thursday, April 25th, the Israel Meteorological Service said, as the country remained engulfed in a heat wave for a second straight day. This comes as the European Union's Climate Change Monitoring Service has declared April of 2024 the hottest April on record, not just for Israel, but for the entire world.
Earthquakes.
According to Tehran University Seismological Center, the 4.6 magnitude on the scale of Richter first struck Ahel district in Fars province at 1:56 p.m. Tehran local time on Saturday, May 11th, and the second quake, which seemed to be an aftershock, shook the same district at 2:06 p.m. A local official in Ashkelon district, the epicenter of the quake, cited the local Red Crescent reports as saying that 2 people were injured in the earthquake when they rushed out of their homes. He reported damages to more than 300 houses in the area.
Volcanic eruption.
Finally, we turn to Mount Etna's volcanic eruption as of June 12th, the effects of which have carpeted the Gaza Strip in dangerous sulfur dioxide gas amid ongoing conflict between Hamas and the Israeli Defense Forces. Etna's emissions have even reached as far as the Suez Canal, according to BBC News.
At least 4 people were killed and 120 others injured when an earthquake hit the northeastern parts of Iran on Tuesday. Local media reported the magnitude of 5.0 quake shook up the town of Kashmir.
Saudi Arabia announced extreme heat made this year's Hajj pilgrimage a deadly one for more than 1,300 people. The pilgrimage ended last week. Temperatures to Mecca and other holy sites soared above 124 degrees.